press coverage for your enterprise tech startup. I'm Mickey Graham, our communications manager at Workbench, and with us tonight we have 4 of the best enterprise tech journalists in New York City. So let's give it up for them.
Yeah.
Starting on my left, we have Jing Cao from Bloomberg, Robert Hackett from Fortune, Alex Konrad from Forbes, and Jonathan Shieber from TechCrunch. First of all, a note on the slide, thank you, Robert, for having a readily available headshot. Jonathan, everyone swears he's a really nice guy. I like to imagine this is the face he gives me whenever I send him a cold email and a pitch. So tonight we'll be covering the best way to reach and pitch the top enterprise tech publications, what it takes to break above the noise to get your startup covered, and much more. We'll save some time at the end for an audience Q&A, so if you can just hold your questions till then. So before we actually get started, I want to get the crowd involved a little bit. So by a show of hands, how many of you in the crowd have actually pitched one of these journalists up here? All right, a few of you. How many of you have actually got them to cover your startup? All right, 2. Not as nice as I thought it'd be, but hopefully we'll change that tonight. We'll give you guys some pointers. So to kick it off, as anyone who's ever been to Workbench knows, our community director, Jesslyn, is going to kill me if I don't ask an icebreaker. So to start, I guess, if you didn't cover enterprise tech, what would you write about?
I would cover energy. I'm a huge oil and gas geek, and before anyone, shakes their head, everything that you use has something to do with oil and gas, right? Like the chairs you're sitting on, the floor you're standing on, everything is connected somehow to the overall oil markets, and everything is produced through some sort of oil product, and it's awesome. If anyone's interested, I can talk for hours about it.
I think self-publishing erotica on Amazon. But in all seriousness, probably science. Organic science.
Robert also might have Twitter feed here, so make sure you all follow it.
That's what happens when the mics cross-change. So, I would track down former poker players and Magic the Gathering players.
You should come to our Magic the Gathering night.
I don't actually know how to play Magic the Gathering. I just like the idea of people being rich off of it. So.
I played Magic the Gathering and lost to an 8-year-old. It's a good game. Like, those kids are tough, man. They really know what they're doing. What would I write about? I would not. I would have found something better to do.
Also, in a couple of hours, I'm going to quit my job after I win the Power Prize.
And start a media company.
So let's get right to the meat of this. All of you guys publicly list your emails on your Twitter bios. On a scale of, I wish all of my emails were from strangers I've never met, to I would die happy if I never received another cold email. How do you feel about kind of the startups reaching out to you and pitching you? Who wants to kick it off? Jane?
Is there any cash involved?
I like to hear from everyone. I tend to read every email. Doesn't mean I will reply to every email. It's nice to kind of have the email public so that in case someone wants to say something, they have an easy way of reaching me. But it's hard because also that means we do get inundated, and somewhere in between.
I welcome pitches to my email. That's why it's up there. But I definitely do not respond to all of them. And that would just be impossible. My inbox is sort of like a Twitter stream in itself. So
I check my voicemail probably once a month when it fills up. And so I hate phone calls more than anything. And I hate calls to my cell phone even more, especially if it's like PR or technical I don't know, and they're like, "Hey, sup?" And I'm like, "Hey, are you my bookie?" Like, no, I got this cool startup I want to talk to you about. I'm like, "Great." Then I hang up. But emails are fine. I'm not going to read all of them. I really am a big fan of warm introductions in whatever you do. If you know anyone who knows someone and can actually rise above the noise to introduce you to us, you are a person just like we want to be people, and you're not just another email address. So I recommend intros.
Oh, that's the end of this. That's over. You never know when the next pitch is going to be actually a great company. So, obviously we keep our emails out there so you can get in touch with us. I guess to add a little value to the question, like one time email is fine, 2 times one follow-up is nice. If you're following up with me a 3rd time, there was a reason why I didn't respond to you the 2nd time, so try not to do that again. It's just more inbox filler, and it makes me mad.
And I will be the first one to apologize for that.
3rd time is not a charm. 3rd time is never a charm with those pitches. It's twice and then let it go.
On that note, though, if you're sending out a 2nd email, don't send it the next day. Try I mean, give us a couple days to sort through everything. I would say, like, within a week would be great, but definitely not the next day. If I didn't read it the first day, the 2nd day, I'm unlikely. Or if I didn't respond the first day, 2nd day, I'm unlikely to respond as well.
Well, John, let's talk about this a little bit more. I know we've all read those articles talking about TechCrunch reporters getting hundreds, if not thousands, of
Bitch too much.
Yeah, but so I guess my question here is, how would you recommend a startup to break above the noise? Get above that stream.
Well, okay. So one thing, just caveat. Anything I say here, I'm saying as John Shieber, not as John Shieber, representative of TechCrunch. Blah blah blah. My opinions are my own. I will say offensive and stupid things. So don't pull that against TC. That's all.
Don't do that in your argument.
No, I do all the time. That you can hold against TC. As for breaking above the noise, I mean, my dear colleague and friend Alex is absolutely right. I think warm introductions are always a better way to go. It pays to, and I think that's true of most anything that happens in the startup community, right? The more you're able to leverage a network and get in touch with people through that network, the more likely you are to get a response. Even if that's a no, it'll be a response.
So, while we're talking about warm intros, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but the PR aspect. If we can't find a way to one of you guys through our network, is it worth, bringing on a PR firm who has those relationships? Jim?
I think it depends on what stage you're in as a startup. Because, PR it costs money and it can be quite expensive. And it also depends on what kind of coverage you're looking for. I think that one disconnect is that maybe when a startup seeks out a PR agency, they think that PR will solve all of the coverage problems, which is definitely not true. And it can help if they have those connections, but the connections, I think, they were saying is the most important bit.
Yeah, it's hard for me to say whether it's worth hiring a PR firm. I've never had to do it. But yeah. It's that my email's out there. It's on my Twitter profile. So if you can't get in touch with me, that would be worrisome.
I was just a mentor in residence in the last class at Techstars, and more just a brag. No, I told that that was basically the only question that people really wanted to know from me was like, are we ready to hire PR? How do we get the New York Times or whatever? It was easy for me because I had a conflict of interest. I could be like, well, I can't write about you now. But the thing I said was basically like, PR firms can be a really good help if you're really aligned on both sides with what they can actually do. If the goal is to just say, we reached out to 20 reporters and we got 20 no's, and they can still make money, why are they incentivized to really go to bat for you? If the goal is, I just want 5 really good introductions to reporters, I'll have coffee with the 5 of them, and if I don't get a story, that's on me. I bet you a small PR firm or even a person working on their own as more a consultant might be able to help that way, but just be really upfront from the beginning in terms of what is that goal at the end.
Cool. So while we're on PR, what about, let's take the angle that you're doing this yourself. All your emails are readily available, they're all okay, you said they're all open. What amount of news does it take to get covered in Forbes? Or, is it enough for a Series A announcement? $10 million from Andreessen and Google Ventures, or is it more than that? Is it about having referenceable customers, especially for enterprise? So if you could kind of talk about, whether it's okay to pitch product announcements or, what you're really looking for in the next story you're going to publish. Robin, you want to start?
Sure. I know product announcements aren't really my thing. They might be other people's thing. Yeah.
I'll jump. I
I'd
get
say
a lot.
just be interesting. That is just distill it down to the core aspects that make it interesting. Get a lot of junk in our inboxes, so yeah.
Well, really quickly while we're on this, Robert, what does interesting look like to you? You know, what do you want to see?
As short as possible while maintaining my interest. I don't know. A lot of people will go on and you'll get pitches that are like 5 paragraphs long, and you're like, well, I have a million of these. There's no way I can read these. So really, just breaking it down.
And Alex, what about you? What's your threshold?
Yeah, so I was going to say I get a lot of product pitches, and it's kind of sort of the world I have to deal with. And I think just like empathy is always my theme with almost all these questions. Like there's a difference between what is important to you internally and what your friends or strangers might find important. It's like trying to tell someone about a stock you have that just did great, or your fantasy football team, or like your date. No one cares. Like they want to know about their own. And so I think with a product announcement, if this product really has a surprise on the market or challenges an incumbent like an Apple or even someone less sexy than that, then that matters to strangers. But if it's just like a really important milestone for you, unfortunately, I think that might be better for an internal blog post or some sort of celebration that doesn't depend on the affirmation of a reporter.
One of the things that I would tell people when I was consulting with was that you need to know your audience a bit. So there are announcements that you'll be making that might be appropriate for a trade publication that won't be appropriate for us, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, as enterprise companies, the bang for your buck is probably going to be more likely in a trade than with any of us. I can guarantee you that the lowest trafficked posts that are posted on TechCrunch are enterprise software stories, by the way. I mean, I think famously, like our former editor-in-chief Alexia once wrote a story like about a $4 billion acquisition, which was like, there's a $4 billion acquisition and no one cares about it. And she got so much shit for that, but for our readership, it was basically true. Pardon my language. So you need to know your audience, right? And you need to know what the best arena is for the types of stories that you are pitching. And version 2.0 of your product is not necessarily going to be for us. But if version 3.0 really blows it out of the water and all of a sudden you're like beating Watson at AI trials or whatever, then yeah, you totally want to write that story. I want to write it first and then you can give it to Alex and everybody else. But yeah.
Well, so, while we're on this, who gets the story first? I want to talk quickly about exclusives. So for everyone in the audience who doesn't know, exclusive would be just sending your story to one of these guys versus sending it to all of them and hoping that they all write about it. So can you talk about whether exclusives help? And again, this is a lot of the startups I think in the room where kind of have that 5 million Series A announcement from some top tier and second tier investors that they're really trying to get in one of these publications. Can you talk about how you feel about them sending you the exclusive on that?
Exclusives definitely help with coverage, but it's not a sure thing. Like for instance, for us. It's very rare that we would write anything under, I think our threshold that is around 40 billion. So even if it's an exclusive Series A, it's still very difficult for me personally to sell it to my editor, right? But on other things, like the kind of things that John was talking about, the really, really cool product that blows it out of the water, or some giant milestone that you guys have crossed that is that has some sort of significance in the broader market. That could be something that would definitely tip the scales in terms of coverage.
I think exclusives can be a great strategy to get coverage in one of these places. I'll accept exclusives on stories that are something I wouldn't normally cover, but if you're giving it to me exclusive, I'll say, okay, why not? There was a journalist who one time told me something. He said, journalists, they don't have to be first to a story, but they never want to be second. I don't know, I think that rings true. As exclusivity can help.
Yeah, I like that. I think one of the biggest issues for me is when you embargo news of any kind, it doesn't really feel like news. It's more like you're making an announcement for your own reasons, and then a reporter or whoever else is kind of jumping to that timing. And so, every day I get, we're announcing funding tomorrow. And it would have to be really, really exciting for me to drop everything to do that. Usually, that actually just gives me an excuse to say, sorry, if you really cared, you would have come to me more than 24 hours notice. And so, with the reason I say that is because with an exclusive, if you're like, look, here's a real concrete reason why we think that your outlet and you specifically as a reporter makes sense for this story. We just think that you'll really get it based on this other thing you did, or the CEO vibed with you over a meeting, and we just want to work with you on your timing, or at least like a little bit flexible there. I'm much more likely to go the extra mile and talk to customers or figure out the context here and actually like put in the extra effort that then that story is the one that you want to share a year later.
Yeah, again.
We gotta start with John with the next question. So I guess, John, starting with you. Well, how long do you want to see? How far out should a startup be pitching you before their announcement?
It depends. I'm a little bit of an outlier now because I have a lot of different hats and I don't really do as much reporting as I used to do. So I'm in more of an editorial role now than a reporting role. It depends on the complexity of the story. Some people have tried to pitch me on things where it's really not that complicated and not, frankly, that interesting. I'll still write it up and I'll still do the exclusive if it's coming through that way. But I don't need a week in advance to do a story about a new portal that's doing insurance, aggregation or whatever. That's not. It depends on the complexity of the story. It depends on, what's going on, really. And how much reporting I need to do. I wish that there were a better answer than that, but there's really not. If you can tell your story well, then it can be a 30-minute phone call, or it can require 30 minutes and then legwork and then more legwork and then more calls to customers. Sorry, that was a shitty answer.
No, it's a great answer. And then, on this topic of reaching out to your school, who do you want to hear from? Is it okay hearing from the marketing folks, or do you really want to hear from the CEO?
I'll take this one too. God, no. Can't fuck them. Don't want to talk to them. Can't tell me anything interesting beyond what they've written in a press release. It's terrible. It's the waste of everybody's time. Seriously, one of the reasons we do interviews and we're not stenographers and we don't regurgitate press releases is because we actually want to ask probing questions and hopefully get real answers that will provide, even if we're all working on a fucking embargo, we want to get some bit of news that's our news, right? And that happens from the way that we interview people, the types of questions that we're asking, and you'll see differences in all these stories, and there will be value added in all of them. My colleagues are great reporters here. So,
I play devil's advocate too.
Oh, go ahead. No, I'm done.
So if there are any marketing people in the audience, I would say there is a way that you can be really helpful, at least in my opinion, which is, this happens to me usually when I develop a relationship. If you can be an advocate for a story in a way that you push your CEO or your management to go out more on a limb than they might have otherwise, then you are actually helping. If you say, I know this reporter, I know you don't want to talk about revenue, or you don't want to talk about this customer, that you're going to have to really call in a favor to do that. I know that that's the only way Alex is probably going to write. We have to do it. And the CEO or whoever says, all right, let's take a chance on that. You just probably made that story happen, whereas the CEO might be used to just getting on the phone for 20 minutes, saying the same spiel, and being like, all right, I'm done, I'm back to real work. And in that case, that's the story that I'm probably not doing.
I don't think that was representative. We're still talking with the CEO.
You said marketing people no. I said yes if they're providing something.
Well, are you still talking to the marketing person on the interview? Or are they doing the interview?
Oh, no. In terms of reaching out. All right, equivalent.
I think it doesn't matter who reaches out as long as the message is understandable. If you're a marketing person and you're telling me, we're going to change the world, or, we're going to disrupt this industry with something real, what does the product actually do? Who are you actually selling to? Like, then the marketing person would not be helpful at all. But, if for enterprise startups especially, it's very difficult to be able to put into words that a layman can understand what exactly it is that you do. And that's, our jobs, and that's what we want to be able to do. But if you as a marketing person can't explain that to us in, a paragraph or maybe two, then we're not likely to even acknowledge you.
Yeah, I think our publications often pride themselves on the relationships with the upper management of the company, and you really want to get that access to a CEO. I mean, that's why there's that relationship there. So CEO or bust.
So, would you recommend the pitches come from the CEO or no?
So I want to clarify. That's not what I'm saying. Pitches can come from marketing people, but when the interview is happening, I thought what you meant was who are you conducting the interview with?
Okay.
And I've had people who have tried to pitch me on a story, and I said, yes, I'd like to talk to someone. And then they put me in touch with the chief marketing officer or someone like that, or a VP of product or something. And that's not my guy. That guy is not going to be helpful.
The number one way to see a PR person quoted in a story is sources close to the company.
Cool. So before we open it up for audience questions, there are kind of two more topics I want to talk about. One, I know you guys all write self-started and long-form content, Jing especially. How should startups approach staying on your radar for kind of those in-depth market pieces, kind of those long profiles where you want to get quoted, or you think you have something to say? Is that a traditional pitch? So they're on your radar?
For me personally, I like to do meet and greets. Like, I really like to meet the people I'm talking with. So a lot of times you don't necessarily need to be pitching me a specific story or a specific trend. You can just say, hey, I really like what you're doing. I really want to meet you. I think you'd be interested in what I'm doing. Description of what I'm doing. And that's how you kind of keep on my radar. Like, I've met you in person, I've chatted with you, had lunch with you, drinks, you told me all about your kids and dogs. Like, I'm way more likely to remember who you are and then be able to include you and think of you. And in those conversations, you might even give me an idea, and that's definitely happened before. Like, actually fairly recently, where a very, very small startup and I met for lunch, and I ended up including them in a story, like a feature piece story, because I remembered that we talked about the exact subject. So.
Yeah, I'd say that's a great point. If you're pitching to try and get a long-form story about your company in one of our publications, it's hard to do that. It's hard to actually pitch that and be like, write this really long thing about my company. Okay. But it does help to kind of get some face time with the reporter. I know that I sort of have a hopper of ideas that I just sort of sit on and let marinate and ruminate over for weeks or months at a time. And if you eventually slot in as a puzzle piece into one of those stories, then that's fantastic.
Well, so the last thing I really want to talk about is syndicated content. I know, and syndicated content for the audience is, essentially guest columns, being a guest contributor to TechCrunch, and has a great guest contributor network as well as Forbes. And that, this is something that Workbench always really did in the early days when we couldn't even get these guys to respond to our emails. So, not that they do respond anymore. But can you talk about syndicated content and whether that's something you like getting, whether that helps you with your job?
I mean that is my job right now. So, yeah. So what I do at TechCrunch more than anything else is run our contributors network. Mm-hmm. So yes, that's my job, and I love getting contributed posts. That's awesome. Syndicated content, I think, means different things to different people. We don't actually syndicate. Well, I am taking that back. We now syndicate one person, but that's Wabla. We're doing that because no, he's great. He's an amazing writer, wonderful thinker, great guy. But typically, we run exclusive columns from executives and investors. And my job is to sort of make them not suck. That's the real goal. I mean, I try to hold the standards of anyone who's going to be published on TechCrunch to the same standards as myself or any of our other writers on staff. So that means that I'm reading every post and I'm rejecting every I'm rejecting most of the submissions that come in to us. Other publications have taken a different approach and have a different strategy, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. I want to go for quality over quantity, but quantity is a great way to make money, and it works really well for a lot of publications. So,
is that my cue?
Look, man, I didn't say anything. I didn't even look at you when I said that. So.
I felt Forbes has a couple models. We have, of course, hundreds of contributors across a bunch of verticals. I think we have probably 150 regular technology contributors right now. You're hired until you're fired, basically, and there's like a no tolerance policy if you screw up, write something that isn't up to our standards, or try to profit off of it in some overt way. Basically, just do something stupid, you're gone right away, no questions asked. Otherwise, the biggest thing that we deal with, and we have a whole producer team who works with our contributors, and different producers for each vertical, is we don't want self-promotional posts. Obviously you're raising your profile, you can brag about it, whatever, that happens, that's why you're doing it to some degree. But the number one reason that we reject both people who want to be regular contributors or one-off submissions is that they're just overtly marketing for that thing. So like a on-demand economy investor who wants to pitch me 5 reasons that 2016 is going to be the best time to be an on-demand investor. Sincerely, the on-demand investor. And you're just like, wow, that's intellectually insulting. And so if that person was willing to maybe talk to me and I could try to pick apart his arguments and play devil's advocate, maybe I say yes to that, but I'm not going to just give him a soapbox. So I would say, if you have a strong opinion on a space, then maybe people will, probably John will be more likely to pick you up too. If you're like, look, we deal with Uber and all those guys, and there's a surprising trend we saw. But it's not just buy our business or put our links on your sites that it improves our SEO. Yeah. And you'd be amazed how many times I get emails from people that kind of hurt me, because I wonder what they think I do all day, that they're like, hey, we were mentioned in Forbes 2 months ago in someone else's story. Could you just add our website as a link in a bunch of places? And I'm like, wow. And usually I just try to explain, please never ask that kind of thing, and I'll pretend it didn't happen.
I just do.
Yeah, well, I try to do service so that they don't bug you.
Jonathan gives them this face.
That's my person.
All right, cool. So let's open it up for audience Q&A. Any questions? Sure, let's start right here. Yeah, sure, go.
Yeah, okay. I have a question on how much social validation you do on the people who send you the story. And by that I mean, do you check whether it's funded by Sequoia and therefore it's worth talking about, or and also do you look at how much they are maybe publishing their own blogs? So how much of that influence your probability of publishing a story in somebody?
So I just want to repeat the question quickly. I think the question was, how much social validation do you do when you're pitched? How much do you look at the startup and see how much they've been covered?
That's right, exactly. How much they published, who they're funded by, that kind of thing. Versus the strength of the story itself.
Well, so again, it's sort of. I'm going to give you a shitty answer. And that shitty answer is this: I like promoting new writers, and I like getting new voices on our site. And I think that TechCrunch, especially as it exists and has evolved into what it is sort of a forum for entrepreneurs and for new startups and young startups and people who aren't necessarily established. So I try to champion that as much as I can without hanging myself like some dumbass. What is that? God, I don't think that was me. Sorry. So I guess what that means is I definitely trust but verify with all things, right? So I'm going to see if you are who you say you are, if you've done anything at all in the past. But if you write a good, insightful post, I've run some posts from students at NYU, at Columbia, at Stanford, who have written really good, insightful commentary on different aspects of the tech community. And that stuff I want to do, and I always do. So I try to keep as open a door as possible, and I'm not snobby. So, if you haven't written before, that's not a big deal. But just be good and be right. If you're wrong, then you'll never write again as far as I'm concerned until everyone I know publish.
The only thing I would add really quick is just what is your expertise? Why would someone listen to you on this topic? If you've been in the business for 17 years, you're not famous, but you can say, I've been in the trenches in marketing for daily deal sites for 17 years, and this is why they're all screwed. Like, I'll listen to you even if I don't know who you are. If you're like, I work for Uber and daily deal sites are screwed, I might be like, wait a second, why are you the one for that? And we get a lot, I'm sure everyone here gets a lot of pitches that are like, Apple's in the news, our CEO wants to weigh in on Apple. And you're like, well, who the heck is this person? You know, like, they're not an Apple partner, they're just trying to piggyback off of someone else's news, so.
Well, let's take another question. Jessica?
Yeah. So, working in marketing in enterprise tech, we sort of understand that education is a big part of PR, educating the reporters, educating the journalists. What is your threshold for being open to be educated about perhaps an industry that the general population doesn't know they ought to care about? And how are you receptive to it? What makes you receptive to be talking about other industries?
So the question was, in enterprise technology, a lot of the topics tend to be really esoteric and a lot of the problems are niche. And Jessica's question was, how open are these guys to kind of being educated on that market?
Well, I know for myself, one of the reasons I am a journalist is because I like to learn. So I'm very open to receiving information about esoteric subjects. So encouraged, highly encouraged.
But Robert, you also
But don't mislead. If you're misleading, then that sucks.
you primarily focus on one or two niches. What about kind of within enterprise technology, going outside of security and some of your key focus areas?
Yeah. Oh, so you mean
Would you want to write about databases if you're interested in security?
Yeah, sure. That's interesting. My beat is cybersecurity, so I cover cybersecurity. But if something is interesting and isn't related to it, I'll absolutely take a look at it.
So it's worth pitching you, even if it's not a cybersecurity startup.
I welcome them. Yep.
Okay.
The email is out there.
Cool. Sure. Let's back here.
Anyone have a questions? I get pitches from my marketing team all the time. They want to talk about milestones, and that's always milestones. They're always up there. Are there any milestones that you actually care about?
The question was, are there any milestones you actually care about?
You're telling me that you went from $0 to $100 million in revenue in a year, and you're only telling me that that's the one.
I think if these are milestones that like your own peers would be pretty shocked about, that'd be my cutoff. Like, I hate to say it, but like frankly, my next magazine story, the company and I were talking for weeks and weeks, and I kind of said, like, when you hit 100 million ARR or whatever it is, like there were a couple data points that I kind of stipulated. If you then come to me exclusively, like that might get us over the hump here. And they kept coming back with different ideas of like, well, we just hit this number of customer or whatever, like other milestones, and it was like, those are the ones I want. So I say you kind of need like a dialogue, and let's be real, like they're different for each area of enterprise that you're in, right? Like if you just got your first $1 million contract, like that might be interesting. Like that's a really big deal.
And quick add to that, in terms of like broader market, if you can say that if your milestones have something that will change or impact the broader market, whether it's you're eating away at some bigger competitors' mind share or market share or something, that's also interesting.
Yeah. Really quick, we love aiming up at the really big giants out there. We hate shooting down. So if you're like, oh, like we're crushing this other small startup, that just feels mean. But if you're like, we just took our 10th customer from Oracle in the last quarter, you're like, whoa, Oracle's screwed. Let's do this.
Anything that's anytime you're in secret negotiations with a really big company for an acquisition or something, and you want to slide me news about that, just on the record, it'll be sources with knowledge of the situation. That's a milestone that I definitely would like to know. So.
Or if you're going
in public, but
The secret IPO is actually we like that too.
Okay, man.
Okay, so I come from a really small town. I'm from Town, which is right next to Hershey, PA. And I've been doing marketing there. What is the biggest word of advice you can give to someone who just came to New York for a marketing sentiment from a small town farm girl?
I like your story. Let's talk.
That intro to everybody.
Yeah, one of the great benefits of living in the city is there are so many people, and it's so dense that you can actually meet with them and get some face time. So yeah, I'd say that's the supreme advantage that you have now.
Play to people's egos. I don't know anything. Please teach me lessons.
Listen to my interview.
All right, cool. Back here.
Hi. So I worked at Bloomberg for 4 years. There were a lot of processes where when you had an idea for a story and then it came out of publication. I guess the question I have, by the time that process was done, you often saw that there was a social media platform or some sort of other distribution platform which scoop you, essentially. And I'm wondering from where you guys stand, if you look out there, what social media platforms do you view as kind of the most viable competitor that's not necessarily a traditional source of an editor, but
So I think the question here is, what we see with the proliferation of kind of product on and social media and these other outlets where traditionally TechCrunch, would have been the gatekeeper to kind of startups, is what, for some people, is, what platform are you most worried about getting scooped by? Or what do you think about these other kind of emerging platforms through which you can launch?
For me, it's not so much the social platforms. It's their way to quickly disseminate information if it came from an unlikely source. Like remember with I think it was Twitter earnings last year, they leaked because someone just figured out the URLs and like suddenly everyone saw it. And it was crazy. But that was like a little company that figured out that like exploit. And I think like for me, it's like VC experts and CD Insights and Mattermark and these guys who like, I'm not even exactly sure why they care so much, but they like go and check filings in Delaware and they're like constantly sniffing stuff out and then passing it to Dan Primack at Fortune or, God knows who. So like for me, that's what scares me is like, I think I know someone's about to raise money or something. And then it's just like, oh, someone else has the filing. So that for me, it's like those, that this rise of kind of the analyst or sort of industry tracker who's not a reporter but can kind of exert influence in who they then work with.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's adorable that people use Medium to make announcements now. It's great. It is what it is. I guess Medium, for me, I think like you're seeing more and more people circumvent the process, such as it is entirely, and like go straight to Medium and issue a post and then say, hey, reporter, we've just issued this Medium post about what it is that we're doing. Do you want to cover it? And I laugh.
Google's awesome at that. Like, I don't know how they did that. How they kept Alphabet under wraps. Like,
that was their own blog, right? So they're right.
So I mean, if you can get the distribution that you can do it yourself in a blog post or a Medium post like that, I think that's badass. Like, it's great. It levels the playing field, and you don't have to play the influence politics of who you give it to. But frankly, you need the name recognition, I think, to really pull that off.
Yeah.
So if you're Alphabet, you can actually do that. If you're not Alphabet, maybe not try.
All right, cool. So we have time for one last question.
Okay, so if I want to get you to talk about me, I'm going to read your stories. I'm going to try to figure out what you talk about. I'm going to send you a short pitch via email, like, hey, you talk about this. I think this is broadly interesting. What do you think? So what am I missing? So I've done that. Yeah, people don't necessarily.